Asking a close loved one or a family member to be your executor may seem like a nice thing to do, even an honor that you would trust that person to take care of your affairs once you've passed away. Many people agree to being the executor for a family member or a friend without even thinking twice about it. But the job of being an executor is a challenging and a time-consuming one. To demonstrate just how big of a job it is, I've outlined 10 duties of an executor that I believe will take at least 10 hours apiece to complete, even for a simple estate. Then I'll describe some complicating factors that could take that 100-hour duty of being an executor and make that effort much more time-consuming. I'm going to close the video with discussing an alternative that you can use to help reduce the complexity and lower the risk of managing your estate. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Mark Walhout. I created this channel to share ideas and concepts that I'm using to help people with retirement every single day. If you want to get more videos like these, consider subscribing to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you're alerted when new videos are posted. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll walk through the 10 duties that I believe will take about 10 hours apiece, even for a simple estate. And then from there, we'll move on to some of the complicating factors that could take that job and make it even larger. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So we'll start with number one, which is locating and reviewing the will. Now, if the deceased has prepared you for this job, they've let you know where to find their important documents. But if not, then you're going to have to go searching for it. It's possible that that is locked away somewhere and you'll need to go to the effort of having that property or that place where it is being kept unlocked so that you can access the document. I think that this could take at least 10 hours. From there, it's creating a list of the deceased's assets. So all the assets that are going to form part of the deceased estate need to be listed out and inventoried. I think that this would take at least 10 hours. From there, communicating to all the financial institutions, so banks, credit card companies, any institution that the deceased had financial records with, you'll need to communicate to those institutions to let them know that the deceased has passed away, to stop making regular payments, to make sure that they're notified that the person is no longer here. I think that that job would take at least 10 hours. From there, probating the will. So probating the will is the process of having the court verify that that will is in fact the deceased's final will and testament, and gives you as the executor the authority to now deal with the estate. And I think that that process and filling out the appropriate paperwork and making the appropriate filings, I think that that would take at least 10 hours for an executor. From there, reviewing and canceling subscriptions, insurance. If you have regular ongoing payments that are coming out of your bank account for any subscription services, the deceased's executor would need to communicate with all those different businesses to let them know that the deceased has passed away, cancel those subscriptions. And now we enter also a realm, because of the year we're living in, the age we're living in, of digital assets. So like anything online, your online social media accounts, all of those different things need to be handled and dealt with by your executor when you pass away. So that job alone, I think, is at least 10 hours and likely more in most or many cases. From there, supervising real estate. So if the deceased owned a home, part of the job of an executor is to manage and protect the assets of the deceased for the benefit of the beneficiaries of the estate. And that might involve the executor needing to take care of property. And in terms of property, work needs to be done to take care and maintain a house. So that could be a significant investment of time for an executor of an estate. The next job is filing final tax returns for the deceased. Now, the executor may work with an accountant in order to complete these final tax returns. There are potentially opportunities from a tax planning standpoint for the deceased after they've passed away to create some better outcomes in their final tax return. But the process of gathering up the documentation, communicating with the tax preparer, I believe that that would also take at least 10 hours. From there, reviewing and managing investment accounts. So if the deceased had investment accounts with a financial advisor or with a bank, those investment accounts would need to be monitored by the executor for the benefit of the beneficiaries of the estate. And I believe that that work, even if it's being outsourced to a third party, would take at least 10 hours. From there, selling assets at fair market value. So part of the job of the executor is to dispose of assets of the estate so that the proceeds can be then passed along to the beneficiaries of the estate. And I make special note here that assets need to be sold at fair market value. And what I mean here is that the executor can't just for convenience purposes sell assets to the first person that comes along so that they can then pay the proceeds out to the beneficiaries and be done with the work. They're obliged to get a fair price for those assets. So the process of marketing those assets, getting a fair price, that can be an onerous process for the executor. So I think that job would take at least 10 hours, likely many more than that. And then finally, reporting to the beneficiaries and communicating with the beneficiaries. So one of the jobs of the executor is to maintain consistent communication with the beneficiaries of the estate and report to them on what they're doing. After all, they owe a duty to the beneficiaries to do an effective job at managing that estate. And so part of that process is going to be regular ongoing communication and reporting to those beneficiaries. If there's only a couple beneficiaries of the estate, this may not be as large of a job, but if the estate has a lot of individual beneficiaries, this could be a very onerous task and could take at least 10 hours to complete. So we've talked about 10 jobs that could take up to at least 10 hours to complete for an executor for a simple estate. But what happens if the estate is more complicated? Now I'm going to talk about 5 factors that could create even more complexity in the estate and take that job from 100 hours up to significantly higher number of hours, and also increase the risk that the executor is taking on in managing that estate. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll talk about the 5 biggest complicating factors. Number 1 is a blended family. So if you have the deceased who had remarried and maybe has children from multiple marriages, there may be a situation where there's conflict in terms of expectations of what the beneficiaries were going to receive as part of that estate settlement and what the actual documents show. And in my time being an advisor, I have seen this occur with a couple of different families, and it is very heartbreaking when some people expect that they're going to get certain things and that doesn't actually pan out when it comes to actually reviewing the estate documents and settling the estate. So this is one situation where if you're part of a blended family and there could be some contentiousness inside of the settlement of that estate, it may crank up the complexity of managing that estate for your executor. The next complicating factor is unique dependency needs. So if you have a child that has a disability that needs special care after you're no longer here, if you have a parent or loved one that relies on you financially or for their care, this may be a situation where the complexity of managing your estate is going to be incredibly higher than for a simple and straightforward estate. So you'll need to make sure that you think about and consider how those loved ones who depend on you and have unique dependency needs are going to be cared for in the administration of your estate by your executor. From there, out-of-country beneficiaries. So if the beneficiaries of your estate are in Canada, it's fairly straightforward, but as soon as you have beneficiaries who are living in other countries, other tax jurisdictions, it may create legal issues when administering the estate on behalf of those beneficiaries for your executors. The next one is business interests. So if you operate a small business and you pass away, your executor is now in charge of winding up your business affairs. So if your executor doesn't have the skill set or the knowledge to manage your business when you're no longer here, that could put your executor into a very risky position where they're being asked to manage a business on your behalf, dispose of assets at fair market value, and they may not possess the skill sets to do that effectively. Next is complex structures. So if you have a family trust, if you own a holding company, these are all different things inside of your estate or part of your affairs that drive up the complexity and the risk of managing your estate. These need to be handled by people that have professional insight and experience in managing how to close these things down and dispose of them as part of the settlement of your estate. So if you've reached this point in the video thinking, wow, this job of being an executor is an incredibly complex one. I may not want to leave a loved one or a close family member in the position of having to deal with my estate when I've passed away because the job just may be too big for them to do. The good news is that there are businesses out there or offerings that you can take advantage of to help manage your estate on your behalf, lower the risk to your executor and beneficiaries, and ensure that that process goes more smoothly. And that option is using a corporate executor. So now I'm going to talk about what a corporate executor is and some of the benefits of working with one. You can hire a trust company to manage your estate, either working alongside of your executor or the trust company themselves being the executor of your estate. All the major banks have trust divisions. There are private businesses as well that only deal with trusts or trust companies that are specific to that purpose. You can also hire them to act as your corporate executor for managing your estate. In many cases, to hire a trust company, they will require a minimum of $1 million in estate assets in order to administer that estate. Now, there are certain assets that pass around the estate, and we've talked about this in previous videos, but just a quick refresh. Things like RRSPs, tax-free savings accounts, life insurance policies, jointly held accounts. those pass outside of your estate. They do not form part of your estate, so those would not be administered by an executor. But if you have and own a home in Canada, because of the price of houses these days, there's a good chance that your home on its own is worth over $1 million. So that might put you in a position where you might be able to go ahead and hire a corporate executor. So that's just something to consider. There are minimums when it comes to dealing with a trust company, but it is possible and even likely that you are in a position where you exceed these minimum thresholds. In terms of compensation for corporate executors, usually they charge between 2% and 5% of the value of the estate. The price goes down on a percentage basis as the total value of the assets in the estate goes up. So you can do some very quick math here. On $1 million estate at 5%, that works out to be a charge of $50,000. Now, that may sound like a lot of money when you think about it in terms of the costs that you'll need to pay or the price you'll need to pay to a corporate executor. But now that we've sort of gotten to the latter half of the video and I've talked through all the work that's involved for the executor, plus the risk that they take on in terms of needing to manage that estate effectively for the benefit of the beneficiaries, that price may not seem to be too high a price to pay in order to maintain that family harmony and ensure that that process goes smoothly. So now we'll close with some of the benefits of working with a corporate executor. We've touched on these already, but just to sort of close the video, the number one benefit is that professional management. So the people that work at a trust company and administer estates are doing this professionally. They're highly trained professionals. This is what they do every day. And they certainly will have more skills and experience than most of the people that you would otherwise nominate, friends and family member, in carrying out those duties. The next major benefit is reduced risk. And this is primarily for your executor. The job of being an executor is one that you owe a fiduciary duty to the beneficiaries to doing an effective job at managing that estate. If you lack the skills and ability, that leaves you open from a legal perspective to issues that you might encounter with the beneficiaries. So reduced risk is one of the major benefits of hiring a corporate executor. And then finally, there's the potential to avoid conflict. Now, if there is going to be issues inside of your estate, some of those issues just may not be avoidable. A lot of those emotional things sort of bubble up in the process of settling estates, but it is possible that through hiring a professional team to monitor and manage that estate process, it could, if not avoid, at least help manage some of the conflict that will arise during that process and hopefully make that entire process more smooth for the beneficiaries of your estate. So hopefully you found this video to be helpful. Being an executor is a very, very large job. Oftentimes when I walk people through their wills and I talk about the job of being an executor and I talk to them about the person that they've chosen and ask them, like, do you think that this person is up to the job? It's not so much that they don't believe or trust that person, but they recognize and realize that, wow, this is a really, really significant job. And so if they have any of those complicating factors in particular, blended families, closely held business interests, complicated estates, considering working with a corporate executor can make a really big difference and can really reduce the risk and improve the likelihood that there'll be a good outcome in the management of that estate. Hopefully you found this video to be helpful. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so that you're alerted when new videos are posted. Leave me any questions or comments below, and I'll speak with you soon. Take care.